Kataboy ka. Kung tagal na lubot, tukan ka pa ng baril. Nabantayan kung sinong lalapit ng mga Pinoy.
Ngayon, talagang inawaterkanon kami. Ang inakatakutan ko, pag nasira ang bangka, ang hanap buhay ng tao, mga kasama ko, wala na.
I must say, after watching that film, I was exhausted because it's a hard life. How is that there? What is it? Is it as bad as that every day?
This is the struggle of the ordinary Filipino fishermen every day in the West Philippine Sea. That's why we really like this documentary film to be screened to different places from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, from all walks of life, for everybody to understand that West Philippine Sea is a concern for everyone. It is not just for the military or the Coast Guard, but the ordinary fisherman has suffered a lot because of the Chinese aggression and lawful activities. And for the Philippine Coast Guard, we are doing everything to support our Filipino fishermen. And for everybody also to know that our fight in the West Philippine Sea symbolizes our own national identity. This is not just about military operations or a battle of who really owns this part of the sea, but it is our fight as Filipino people. Thank you.
All right, so let me introduce to you someone who's just joined us. This is Terry Malvaros, an associate producer of this film. Okay, we'll head on to you in a second. Okay, I wanted to ask you a question. So what we've just seen is almost a David and Goliath story.
Yes.
Okay, and on August 11, there was an incident whereby a Chinese Coast Guard vessel was outmaneuvered by a smaller Philippine vessel who was trying to deliver supplies on a Kadiwa mission, I think, to the fishermen somewhere in Scarborough Shoal. In its pursuit of this Filipino vessel, the Chinese Coast Guard vessel rammed accidentally into a Chinese guided missile destroyer and damaging its bow in the process. I honestly, when I read about this story, I felt there is justice there because this small Philippine vessel was able to outmaneuver two Chinese vessels. There must have been some kind of celebration or cheering going on amongst the people, the Coast Guard crew or even the Philippine Navy.
So honestly, the first response of the Philippine Coast Guard vessel, in which you probably heard over the news, is that we even extended our offer of support that if they need medical attention, the Philippine Coast Guard personnel will be there to support them. And then on the one hand, I would also be very candid with you. We also felt victorious in a way that they have the most sophisticated destroyer vessel from the PLA Navy, monstrous size China Coast Guard vessel, and yet we were able to outmaneuver them. So it's a bit of mixed emotion. We are sad for the fate of those Coast Guard personnel who were injured, but at the same time, as what you have described, it is victorious on our part because we are good in seamanship and they are not.
Of course, apparently, as a result, that incident had led to apparently a loss of face for China because a smaller vessel had outmaneuvered their two big vessels, and as a result, there's been a lot of assertive, aggressive actions being faced by the Philippine coastal vessels in the China Sea in the last months, in the last 2 months since that incident. And China has also set up apparently a nature reserve. The State Council has agreed and announced that there will be a nature reserve around the Scarborough Shoal in the process, right? So unfortunately, that little victorious lap has led to the Philippine naval crews being faced with this challenge of often being water cannons being used against them, and their ships also being rammed. But anyway, this is supposed to be a question and answer. If there's anyone who wants to ask a question, unfortunately, you just got one mic, so you've got to shout and I will ask you a question in a few minutes, okay? Would anyone in the audience like to ask a question? Somebody? Okay. Hi.
Hello. Of course, Commodore. I've been an avid follower in social media regarding, of course, social issues, and then this one, what's happening in the West Philippine Sea. Now, I admire personally for your compassion, dedication, and your crew. Now, as a netizen like me, I'm stuck in a house because I got 4 kids. What can I contribute, or what can you tell me or the netizens to help you or the crew? Or is there any program or anything? So maybe I can spread awareness by myself, but can you suggest, or what can we do to help you and the crew, especially your team, sir?
Okay. And your name?
My name is Nina Garcia.
Nina Garcia.
Thank you, Ms. Mina, for a very interesting question. You know, our fight in the West Philippine Sea, for me, our hardest and most difficult struggle on a day-to-day basis are not the monstrous-sized Coast Guard vessels or very large warships from the PLA Navy. Our hardest struggle on a day-to-day basis is actually fake news and misinformation. And for me, we are known to be a social media capital of the world. And it's also unfortunate that the Chinese government is using social media platforms to advance their misinformation and fake news. So, as what you have described, as you are enjoying the comfort of your home, and you really want to carry out a patriotic contribution to our fight in the West Philippine Sea, please care to comment on those fake news and misinformation that is being spread by pro-China trolls, paid trolls, or even known politicians who are also espousing the same pro-China narratives. And not just make comments, but also report those social media accounts that are being used as a paid troll to spread this misinformation. And lastly, I think it's very easy for us to really counter those fake news and misinformation, because as what you're aware right now, ma'am, the mainstream media actually has the right information and the factual narrative about what's happening in the West Philippine Sea. It is easy for you to use Google and then share it and then counter all those lies. So that is the most important thing that you can do to support our fight in the West Philippine Sea. That is to fight misinformation and spread the right information about the West Philippine Sea.
Are there any advocacies like outreach projects being undertaken to help the fishermen, the crew, the frontliners in the South China Sea that people could maybe contribute or to be involved in?
Well, there are different ways that you can support the ordinary Filipino fishermen. You don't really have to go to West Philippine Sea for you to support their life as an ordinary Filipino fisherman whose their source of livelihood was greatly affected by harassment. As you saw from the documentary film, there are a lot of Filipino fishermen in Zambales and also in Bataan who cannot go to their usual fishing venture because they are afraid of the Chinese Coast Guard harassment. So if you're really very, dedicated in reaching out those ordinary Filipino fishermen who were affected by Chinese aggression, you can arrange your group or your neighborhood, donate something, whether groceries, food, anything that can sustain the day-to-day lives of Filipino fishermen in Zambales and also in Bataan. Again, I don't want to be interpreted that you really need to go to the West Philippine Sea to deliver the supplies, just like what the Coast Guard is doing. You can also bring it to the Coast Guard, and we'll make sure that each time that we sail out at sea, we will be distributing those donations that you have to our ordinary Filipino fishermen.
Okay. Well, that's a nice outreach to actually put together. Maybe we can organize one in West. Most of the people here are from West Row. Can I a show of hands? How many people here are from West Row?
It
Right.
rhymes, right?
Yes.
West Grove, West Philippines.
West Row, West Philippines, yes. So anyway, we can do a Christmas whatever, and then send it over to you to the Philippine Coast Guard office. There must be one in Manila, and then you can just send it and say that it's from us, from watching the film. Because truly, honestly, just looking at the movie, it was really exhausting. That's hard, and the amounts of money that they are collecting, are they earning for that work, for the risk, to be able to pay bills is just amazing. Anyway, so let me ask you, Terry, how did this film come about? What made you decide to do a movie about this topic?
So first and foremost, Ms. Baby Ruth Villarama, the director of the film, researched about the West Philippine Sea, the fishing communities, last year. For one whole year, she researched about it. She really went there. She did her immersion. It came about because of this one interview by Marcoleta saying that there's no such thing as the West Philippine Sea. From there, she started her research into why such a political figure would actually say something like that. And then it also sparked a question in her mind. How do they deliver food into our tables? How does food be brought into our tables, especially the seafood, the fishes? So that's where she went. She went to fishing communities in Zambales. She met Ka Arnel, Ka Osman, and then thankfully we were able to attain a grant to a certain film festival, and then that's where we actually started really doing the logistics of the shoot, really starting it all. We just started shooting September last year until December of that same year, and it was really because of this one interview. And ever since then, Miss Baby really wanted to have documentary films that would spark call to actions for other Filipinos to know more about certain situations that aren't really being broadcasted that much. And also, the main objective of Miss Baby Ruth was that she wanted people to know that there are human lives being victimized by such global headlines. These are not just numbers, this is not just a national issue, but actual human lives are parang nadadamay sa mga balita.
By the way, in my line of sight, I can see one of the executive producers of this film is here, Alvin Shonko, who wants to remain anonymous, but he won't be. Anyway, and this movie, by the way, was considered for an Oscar nomination this year, right?
Yeah, shortlisted. We were shortlisted as the Philippine Oscar entry.
Okay, so, all right. Any other question? Okay, go. You have to shout your question, okay?
To the Commodore,
And who's asking the question, by the way? Okay. Oh, sorry. I think Maridig. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Those are two difficult questions. What are those misinformation and fake news that the Chinese pro-China trolls are actually spreading in the social media? The first one is that we do not have a strong case to assert our position in the West Philippine Sea. They always counter the 2016 Orbital Award, that it is not binding because they did not participate, it cannot be enforced, those kind of things. So basically, it always downplays our own position legally and also attack the 2016 Orbital Award. That is always their main line. That's one. The second one is that whatever is happening in the West Philippine Sea, it is just because of the great power competition between the United States and the People's Republic of China. But obviously, this is a big lie. Now, I would also like to take this opportunity to explain why such argument is a big lie. You know, in 1992, the US bases were no longer allowed by the Philippine Senate to stay here in the Philippines, meaning they were kicked out of the country. There were no US bases in 1995, but the Chinese took over Mischief Reef, claiming that they're just going to make use of that as an ordinary fisherman's shelter. If the Chinese concern is really the United States, then why they would take over Mischief Reef? Fast forward in 2012, the Scarborough Shoal standoff happened when the Chinese government is resisting the arrest of those Chinese poachers who are catching endangered species like pawikan, giant clams. So it is not because of the United States. During that time, we are not yet discussing about EDCA. It was only a year after that we started discussing EDCA. So also during the time of the Duterte administration, from 2016 to 2022, in those 6 years, we all know for a fact that President Duterte was never a fan of Washington. As a matter of fact, he said he even wanted to abrogate the Visiting Forces Agreement, and he never allowed any balikatan exercise to happen during his presidency. So, the argument that is it really the US from 2016 to 2022? It's a counterintuitive response, right? The mere fact that Duterte is not allowing US and he even visited China 5 times without even going to Washington. It doesn't add up. Like, why is it that we're still going to blame US if China has been a good friend of Duterte the entire 6 years? Under this administration, some pro-China trolls are saying that, but the difference between the Duterte administration and this administration is that it is more tense right now. Escalation is higher. The level of aggression is much more higher. That is not absolutely true. Those are lies being spread by these pro-China trolls. It's because the only difference with Duterte administration and Marcos administration is that under President Marcos, we choose to adopt the Transparency Initiative. That is the reason why ordinary Filipino fishermen, why ordinary Filipino people are aware of what's happening in the West Philippine Sea. Because we choose to expose the unlawful activities of the People's Republic of China. We don't really care whether it's daily, weekly, or monthly. We want the world to know, and we want the Filipino people to be aware of what's happening in the West Philippine Sea. If you're going to ask me, what about during the time of the Duterte administration? During the time of the Duterte administration, all Filipino fishermen, regardless from Zambales down to Palawan, would also argue that whatever is happening right now is also the same level of aggression that they're happening before. But Duterte administration just didn't decide to publicize it and even downplay it during the entire 6 years. So those are the lies that they're doing. And then the third one that I would really one to counter, which is related to your second question, that choosing to stand up against a bully country like the People's Republic of China would lead to war, right? That kind of threat has always been repetitively said by President Duterte during his entire years. He even said that, if we choose to stand up for the West Philippine Sea, in just a matter of days, we can already be invaded by China. And a lot of Filipinos were so afraid because of that statement. But to counter that, we have been standing firm for the West Philippine Sea for more than 3 years already. For more than 3 years, since President Marcos delivered his policy statement during his Assumption speech, wherein he promised that he's not going to surrender a square inch of our territory to any foreign power. So far, hindi pa naman nagkakagera. So the argument that there will be war if we choose to stand up for our own rights is also another big lie that has been propagated during the time of the Duterte administration. Now, going back to your question, will there be war in the next coming years? In evaluating the behavior of China, we would argue that it's not even the intention of China to go to war as well. The mere fact that Xi Jinping is still relying on Coast Guard vessels, Chinese maritime militia to harass our Filipino fishermen, and not to send out their aircraft carrier just within our own exclusive economic zone to militarily attack our own vessels, that is a clear evidence that even Xi Jinping do not want to go to war. There are 3 ways if you really wanted to go to war as a national leader to respond to. The first one is, what is your strategic objective if ever you will go to war? President Xi Jinping, for example, while he's having dinner tonight, wanted to go to war. The first question that he has to answer is, what will he gain from war if ever he would do it tomorrow? He will probably silence the face of Commodore Tariela if he would decide that, right? But other than the strategic value of it, when Xi Jinping came to power in 2012, he has a promise to the Chinese people. That is to realize the China dream. And for more than a decade already, the Chinese economy had already significant milestone. They are now the 2nd largest economy in the world. And they even wanted to be the #1 global supplier of all products in the world. If you're Xi Jinping and you really wanted to be the #1 in the next coming years, of course, common sense will tell you going to war would definitely hamper that ambition. Secondly, China is a victim of their own one-child policy. All of the people in the Chinese Communist Party have one child. I don't think if you are the trusted core group of Xi Jinping and you only have one child, I don't think that you would advise Xi Jinping right now that let's go to war. Let us send our only son and daughter to war because we are tired of Commodore Tariela complaining about the West Philippine Sea, right? So those kind of things are the variables that he has to answer.
Okay. There were just a couple of things that you had mentioned. Did you say that the trolls are saying that the Philippines are the ones as the aggressors and not the China? Okay. Because the fact is that since that August 11 that I mentioned earlier, the Chinese have been quite aggressive in its stance. I mean, they seem to have reassessed their maritime strategy as a result of that incident. I mean, is that wrong, or is that a wrong assessment? I mean, you've had a lot of incidents where the Chinese vessels had, as I said, fired water cannons or rammed into Philippine vessels in the last 2 months since that incident. Just to make it quick because we have to be off in a few minutes.
I'm sorry I talk a lot.
You know,
But to
only
respond to that
minutes,
question,
okay. Unfortunately, we only have one microphone.
The August 11 incident, we cannot really say that because of that, it escalated the tension. There's nothing new that is happening after August 11. They're still using water cannon. They're still doing dangerous maneuver. They are harassing the Filipino fishermen. With or without the August 11 incident, I don't think that it would still be much more different.
Okay, all right. Okay, what time is it? Okay, we just one more question before I will give something lighthearted. One more. You can shout. Who is it? Give your name and then just shout your question.
Hey, I know that person.
This is Lucy and I'm Isabella. And personally for you, how do you think the situation should be settled?
How do you think the situation should be settled?
Short answer. President Marcos has responded to this question a lot of times. He still believes that the diplomacy is our best way to solve our differences, not with China or any other, not just with China, but all other claimant states in Southeast Asia.
Okay. He's a very obedient Commodore. Okay, I have one last question. It's lighthearted, but it has a serious message. Sometime in September, you had said that there is this great disparity between what's happening on the assets that you possess. That you only have three. Now I've forgotten all the word that I was looking for.
Fixed-wing
aircraft and 2 helicopters against a former representative, Zaldico, who has about $74 million. $1 million. Dollars, yes, I'm right. $1 million.
I think billion.
$1 billion, okay, on air assets, one of which is a Gulfstream 350. Have you managed to get any of that, or any of that thrown your way, or is there anything that's happening that you might benefit as a result of that statement?
Well, I'm also as excited as you are. Should the government decide to give away all the assets of Congressman Saldico to the Philippine Coast Guard. But right now, there's still no decision yet whether it will be given to the Coast Guard or the Armed Forces of the Philippines, or how soon it will be, given to different people. But if there's one consolation that we can really say because of this flood control mess, that is the Philippine Coast Guard and the Armed Forces of the Philippines significantly received increase of budget to support our capability and the modernization of the armed forces.
Good. So that's a little silver lining in a very dark, or a little light in a very dark tunnel. Anyway, I think we are. One more question. We can. One more question.
Tagalog is okay.
Tagalog is okay, of course. Sorry, come on. Come. Mention your name and.
And good evening, everyone. I am Jimson Aberway Napoles po. So,
After that Zaldico question.
don't mention my surname po. Hindi ko rin sila kilala. Ayun po. So, ayun po yung question ko po and concern as a youth. We know that our country have a lot of problems in different sectors like education, government issues, territorial issues, and ano yung bukod sa pag-aaral, bukod sa paggamit ng panibagong economy or system ng ating bansa, ano yung bukod pa naming magagawa? Hindi lang sa, kasi ayun ang common we know that youth, na kailangan mo mag-aral para ikaw yung maasahan sa susunod na generation. But no, paano kung this time na nag-aaral pa lang kami, yung country natin lumulubog na? Paano kung nag-evolve pa lang tayo, yung country natin bagsak na? Ano yung purpose na pag-aaral ng youth kung dito pa lang wala na? So, ako po, as a youth and representing the youth, bukod sa pag-aaral, bukod sa paghihintay, bukod sa pag-a-adopt ng tinuturo ng mga mas nakakatanda, ano yung kaya pa namin gawin para sa bansa? Hindi man physically, hindi man sa paglaban, di naman namin kayang pumatay, hindi naman namin kayang humarap. Pero bukod sa boses, ano, sino, kailan, at paano po namin magagawa?
I suppose you can look at it in the context of what they can do to help the folks in West Philippine Sea.
Thank you, ma'am. Una sa lahat, no? Bata ka pa naman, but I don't agree with what you said. That in the next coming years, paano kung lulubog na ang Pilipinas? Hindi pa kayo nagsisimula. The mere fact that people from West Grove here spent their Sunday evening because they want to hear about the story of the West Philippine Sea is a good indication of this generation cares for the future of the younger ones, right? I don't want you to have a very pessimistic appreciation of what the future will be like because of the news that you are hearing right now in the social media. There are still good people here. There are still people who care about our country. And going back to your question, how can you support the Philippine government in ensuring that our country will be much better? How old are you now?
16.
16. This year, 2025. In 2028, how old will you be?
Boboto ka na.
18 years
Botante ka
old.
na.
Every time I always encounter this kind of question about youth rushing to contribute to our national security and national development, I always remind them that the most important and the most patriotic contribution that you can give to this country is to go out and vote.
Yes.
And not just to vote, but to be socially and politically aware of what's really happening. You also need to understand that the right of suffrage is also your responsibility, knowing that it should not be dictated, it should not be sold, and you should be very smart in electing the next leaders of this country.
Okay, and on that very positive note, we have another question. Okay. We'll have a second question, a last question.
They're actually the youth volunteers.
Good evening po. I am Crystal from the youth teacher from Bayan Ko Teacher Ko Angat Buhay. So may follow-up lang naman po ako since we are all aware na ang pagboto ay kapangyarihan. Tama po. Ang gusto ko lang pong marinig galing po sa inyo, ma'am and sir, paano po natin magagamit yung platform natin to empower, to disseminate the information, hindi lang po sa adults. Siyempre, meron po tayong mga children na hindi naman po gano'n na nakakaintindi sa nangyayari sa atin. As what sir nga po, dapat hindi nira-rush, pero gusto ko pong marinig yung insight and thoughts galing po sa inyo kung paano po natin mabibigyang pansin yung kabataan na hindi pa na-involve sa usaping matatanda. Para po, bata pa lang, aware po sila. At pagdating ng tamang panahon na boboto at pipili tayo ng magiging leader ng bansa, mas capable po silang pumili sa karapat-dapat. Yan lang po. Thank you.
I'll give it to you, then I can answer.
Parang naging political, na ako dito, analyst na. Akala ko West Philippines sila yung pinunta natin. Well, that's a very tough question. But, you know, I think the younger generation now is a different version of those years that we were young before. Ang kabataan ngayon, kumpara sa kabataan noon, when we were young, sabi nga nung paring nakausap ko sa Bicol, who is the rector of UST Legazpi, the one that used to be Thomas Aquinas. Ang sabi niya, Commodore Tariela, engaging the youth is the right action for this country to change. And then I asked why. He said, nung bata kasi tayo, sinasabihan ng magulang natin anong masama, anong mabuti, anong gagawin, sinong ibuboto. But the younger generation now, they are completely different. They are actually opposite. They are the ones who tell their parents what is right, what is fake news, and what's the right action. As a matter of fact, he even said, ang mga magulang dito, for example, sa Bicol, pinagtanong ko ang mga estudyante namin dito, ilan sa inyo ang naglista ng iboboto ng magulang nyo during the last election? And they all said, everybody was the one who prepared the list kung sinong iboboto nila. So I don't want to believe na ang kabataang Pilipino ngayon would still need direct guidance and supervision from the older generation. I have so much respect and admiration to the younger generation of Filipinos. You are the better version of ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, my only thought is this. I have been away. I've not lived here in the Philippines for a long time, and when I joined the trillion peso rally several weeks ago, and what actually impressed me was how the youth had come out during this march. I walked from almost the entirety of the EDSA up to the People's Monument, the the People's Monument. And I was with this amazing lady, Monzon, Winnie Monzon, and she was inspiring to watch, and also what she said to me was, comparing it with the 83 and the 86 movements, this one it galvanized the youth into action. It was actually quite inspiring to see how there were so many young people out in the streets and expressing what they thought about what was going on with this corruption issue. So take heart. There are a lot of people who are so involved socially in what's going on in the Philippines, and it's nice to see. So, and on that note, are we okay? Oh, there's one more. Yes.
Oh, yes. Sure, sorry.
Representing
I
the
beg your
younger
pardon.
generation.
I beg your pardon. Okay.
Yeah, I've been wanting to answer the last
okay.
one also.
Okay.
It's okay.
Sorry.
As a youth myself, what I really like is that even the older generation now, they're also very much aware of our generation and even the younger generation. Then the Gen Zs, is that we are very socially and politically aware of the situation that we are in, especially in our own country. Because of course, there's a lot of information around the internet, the people around us. We have so much sources for us that it doesn't have to be an excuse for us not to be aware of. And one thing is that we should always be informed of our situations, political man, social man, economical man. We also should share the information that we attain to others, because even though that we are very much aware, there are other people who don't have the same type of algorithm as us. They don't have the same type of sources that we do. But other than all those things that we probably already know, to being informed, is that we should never give up in this fight. Huwag tayo magsasawa lagi na ipaglaban talaga natin yung mga laban natin. Because I think we also have to remember that everyone here in this room were also youth then. And they also never stopped fighting. I had one of my friends, co-actors, his name is Sir Boji Pascua. He shared a story to me that ever since he was young, he has been fighting. He was part of the rally in EDSA. Lagi siya nag-rally. 200 rallies yung pinuntahan niya bago dumating yung EDSA revolution that we have now. And he would always tell me, na muntikan na siyang magsawa, pero hindi siya nagsasawa because alam niya na yung pinaglalaban niya ay intergenerational. And how loving it is to see that we are fighting for something that we don't even know the end of it. But we believe that someday, makukuha natin yung solusyon na yun. And even though we aren't there anymore, mas alam natin na pinaglaban pa rin natin yan. So, never stop fighting.
Do we still have time? One last. Okay. Okay. And your name?
I'm May Madrona. Actually, ako po yung lead implementer ng Bayan Ko Teacher Ko program. Okay, so hindi po tanong, pero I guess commitment. Una-una po, thank you Ms. Terry and Commodore J. Toriela. Kanina nung napanood ko siya, it's differently para sa akin, no? Parang kulang pa pala yung ginagawa namin to intervention program, literacy intervention. Bayan Ko Teacher Ko program is a literacy intervention program for grade 2 struggling readers in public education, elementary school. Why grade 2? Because we have to catch them. We have to start sa foundational. Okay. Problem natin is reading and comprehension. Now, sabi ko nga, commitment. Why? Because BKTK, in partnership with Angat Buhay, kami ay nag-i-implement on a community and school level. I guess, kailangan namin as volunteer tutors, we need to do more. Jimson, those are volunteer youth namin. Sila yung community level volunteers. Okay. I guess, Jimson, sasagutin kita, magpaparami tayo. Okay. Sabi nga ni Attorney Chel Jokno, we need army of tutors para i-address natin yung learning crisis. Actually, yung learning crisis na yun, it's a matter of survival. According to EDCOM report. Magpaparami tayo, ika-capacitate pa namin kayo, more trainings pagdating ng summer, and then I do hope yung children's organization dumami pa para maraming mga youth, because ang target po talaga namin is yung mga youth na from 14 to 17 years old. Because child-to-child ang approach, and para rin pag summer, meron silang, busy sila, instead na kung ano yung gagawin. And of course, 2028, let's all be real, 2028 is coming.
Maraming isda yung kalburo. Maraming isda mapagpagkukulang ka ng yamang dagat. Ang hanap buhay, yung ganda na dagat. Suporta isa sa atin.